There's a moment, perhaps you've felt it, when you're scrolling through your phone late at night and the glow of the screen illuminates something dark in your face. You see another video, another crowd, another act of casual cruelty that's been liked, shared, monetized. And for just a second you wonder, when did we all agree this was normal? I know that feeling. I knew it 3,000 years before your algorithms learned to feed it back to you. My name is Lot, and I watched a civilization collapse, not because it ran out of wealth or power or even time. It collapsed because it ran out of shame, because the people stopped flinching, because evil became so ordinary that goodness itself became the crime. You think I'm speaking in metaphors, ancient allegories, comfortable distance. I'm not. I'm talking about the night I stood in my doorway and heard my neighbors, educated people, prosperous people, normal people, demand that I hand over two strangers so they could rape them in the street. And the most terrifying part wasn't their violence. It was their confidence, the casual certainty that they had every right, that I was the deviant for suggesting otherwise. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back. Back to the golden hour before everything burned. Back to the moment I should have run, but instead opened my door wider and invited the end of the world to dinner. Some cities don't fall, they evaporate. And the smoke? It smells like the life you thought you were building. I wasn't supposed to end up in Sodom. That's what I told myself every morning for 20 years, every time I walked past the marketplace where they sold children like livestock. Every time I heard screams from the pleasure districts and pretended the wind was just playing tricks. Every time I looked at my daughters and wondered what kind of man raises his family in Babylon and calls it practicality. It started so simply, the way corruption always does. My uncle Abraham and I had come west from Ur together, following a God who spoke in promises and riddles. We'd grown wealthy, too wealthy, to share the same grazing lands without our shepherds coming to blows. So Abraham, in that maddening way of his, gave me first choice. Look, he said, standing on a ridge that overlooked two valleys. Choose. To the west, the hill country, rocky, sparse, safe, where Abraham would stay, tending his flocks under an empty sky, talking to his invisible God. To the east, the Jordan Valley, and oh God help me, it was beautiful, lush, green. The twin cities of Sodom and Gomorrah rising like jewels from the plain, their towers catching the sun, their gardens terraced down to the salt sea. I could see irrigation channels glinting like silver veins, smoke from 1,000 cook fires. The geometry of civilization, prosperity, security, a future. Abraham saw me looking and said nothing, but I felt his silence like a hand on my shoulder, pulling me back. I shrugged it off. A man has to think of his family, I said. He nodded slowly. Yes, he does. The hills are fine for you. You hear voices. You get visions. I have daughters to marry off, sons-in-law to find. I can't raise them in tents forever, eating dust and calling it faith. No, Abraham agreed. You can't. But the way he said it, like he was agreeing to something else entirely. I took the valley. I told myself I'd keep my distance from the cities, stay on the outskirts, benefit from their markets, their protection, their infrastructure, without becoming of them. Like you tell yourself, you'll just check social media for 5 minutes. Just one more scroll, just enough to stay connected without getting consumed. Within a year, I'd moved into Sodom proper. Within 5, I was sitting at the city gate, a position of honor, a judge's seat adjudicating disputes, according to Sodom's laws. Laws I'd learned to rationalize, to contextualize, to enforce without making eye contact with the part of myself that was dying. I told myself I was being strategic, that I could do more good from inside the system, that my presence was a moderating influence, that if I left, who would be there to help the few who could still be helped? The lies we tell ourselves have a particular texture, smooth, reasonable. They don't taste like lies at all. They taste like wisdom. Let me tell you about Sodom, the real Sodom, not the cartoon version you've heard about in Sunday school warnings. Sodom was rich, breathtakingly, obscenely, architecturally rich, the kind of wealth that builds temples to itself. The valley's fertility produced 3 harvests a year. Trade routes from Egypt, Mesopotamia, and Arabia converged at our gates. We had running water, actual aqueducts, when most of the world was still hauling buckets. We had paved streets, public baths, amphitheaters where poets competed for golden laurels. We had culture, and culture, I learned, can be the most elegant mask for rot. The laws were where you could see it most clearly. Not criminal laws, those were almost unnecessary. No, the civic codes, the regulations that defined what it meant to be sodomite. Article 47 of the City Charter: any citizen who gives bread to a beggar shall have their hands struck off. Any citizen who gives water to a traveler shall have that water measured and poured back down their throat until they drown. I watched them enforce it once. A young woman, a baker's daughter, had given half a loaf to a starving child. They took her to the square, tied her to a post, and smeared her with honey. The bees did the rest. It took 3 days. Her crime: disrupting the economic balance. If we feed beggars, the chief magistrate explained to the crowd, we incentivize poverty. We must be cruel to be kind. The crowd applauded. Because it made sense. Because cruelty, wrapped in economics, always makes sense. But the laws were just structure. The real genius of Sodom was cultural. We had normalized monstrosity. The entertainment districts, what we called the Gardens of Delight, weren't hidden in shame. They were tourist attractions. You could purchase an afternoon watching prisoners fight to the death, then stroll next door for wine and honey cakes while musicians played. You could buy a contract on a debt slave for an hour, do whatever you wanted, and return them with a receipt. Legal, regulated, civilized. And if you objected, if you suggested that perhaps some pleasures weren't worth the price, you were the problem. Backwards, prudish, probably religious, which in Sodom was code for dangerous fundamentalist. You'd lose your seat at the gate, your business contracts, your daughter's marriage prospects. So you learned not to object. You learned to look at the slave markets and see economic efficiency, to hear screams and call it entertainment, to watch your neighbors grow hollow behind their eyes and call it sophistication. You learned to live in Sodom. I became fluent in it. The ethical gymnastics, the mental partitions. I had a whole shelf of arguments for why I stayed. I'm helping from within. I'm protecting my family. This is just how the world works. At least I'm not participating. At least I still believe in something. At least, at least, at least. The mantra of the man standing in the middle, convinced his position is noble, when really it's just frozen. But here's what I couldn't partition away: my dreams. Every night, the same vision. I'd be standing in my house and the walls would start weeping. Not water, something thicker. When I'd touch it, my hand would come away red. And I'd hear a voice, not words, just a frequency, asking the same question. How long? I'd wake up next to my wife, her face peaceful in sleep, and I'd think, 1 more year. I'll get the girls married. I'll secure our position. Then we'll leave. But 1 more year became 5, became 10, became 20, because leaving meant admitting I'd been wrong to stay. And that price felt higher than any I was paying. The day the world ended began, like every other day, in Sodom. I was at the gate, my usual position, settling a property dispute between 2 merchants. The case was tedious. One claimed the other had violated a contract by delivering silk 3 days late. The defendant argued that an accident to his caravan constituted force majeure. Sodomite law was clear. Contracts were sacred, excuses were weakness. I ruled for the plaintiff. Ordered the defendant's youngest son sold into indenture to cover the damages plus interest. The defendant wept. The plaintiff smiled. The crowd dispersed. Justice. The sun was setting that particular hour when the sky over the salt sea turns colors that don't have names. Copper bleeding into violet. The air thick and sweet. Jasmine mixing with something sharper. Sulfur, maybe. The valley always smelled faintly of sulfur. I was preparing to leave when I saw them. Two men at the far end of the square, standing near the traveller's gate. And the moment I saw them, something in my chest lurched. They weren't sodomite. You could tell. It wasn't their clothes, simple robes, travel-stained, but well-made. It wasn't their features, they could have been from anywhere, faces that somehow looked both young and ancient. It was something else, something in the way they stood, like they weren't subject to the same gravity as the rest of us. And they were being watched. A crowd was forming, slowly, the way predators circle. I recognized faces. Jathan, the wine merchant, Kelev, who ran the gardens, others. Their eyes bright with that particular sodomite hunger, the thrill of finding something unblemished to ruin. In Sodom, strangers had two options: pay tribute at the gate or become entertainment. These two hadn't paid tribute. I should have walked away. Every survival instinct I'd honed over 20 years screamed at me to turn around, go home, kiss my daughters goodnight, and let the city do what the city does. Instead, I stood up. I still don't know why. Maybe it was the dreams. Maybe it was muscle memory from a life I'd lived before Sodom. Maybe it was just that I was tired of being the man who always knew better and never did better. I walked across the square, each step feeling like movement through water, heavy, inevitable. When I reached them, I bowed deeper than necessary, lower than a man of my position typically bowed to strangers. "My lords," I said. The words came out formal, ancient, a mode of speech I hadn't used in years. "Please, don't spend the night in the square. Come to my house. Let me wash your feet, share my table, leave in the morning." One of them looked at me, really looked, like he could see the property dispute I'd just ruled on, the baker's daughter smeared with honey, every compromise I'd ever made, all of it written on my face in a language I couldn't erase. "We'll stay in the square," he said gently. "No." The word came out harder than I intended. "You won't survive the night." "We know." "Then why?" "We're not here to survive, Lot." He knew my name. Of course, he knew my name. The crowd was closer now. I could hear Kelev laughing, that wet sound he made when he'd found a new attraction for the gardens. "Please," I said again. And this time, it wasn't hospitality. It was begging. The two men looked at each other. Some communication I couldn't hear passed between them. Then, the one who'd spoken nodded. "All right, we'll come." I led them through the streets as the sun finished dying. Behind us, I could hear the crowd following, not rushing. They had time. They knew where I lived. Everyone knew where everyone lived in Sodom. My wife was at the door when we arrived. She saw the strangers, saw my face, and something in her eyes shuttered closed. "Lot," she said quietly, "what have you done?" I ushered the men inside, barred the door, turned to face my family, my wife, my two daughters, my sons-in-law visiting for the evening meal. "We have guests," I said. Outside, I could hear footsteps, voices, the sound of Sodom gathering. Inside, the two strangers stood in my modest home, somehow making it feel smaller and larger at the same time. One of them smiled at me, sad, knowing. "You should have chosen the hill country, Lot." And in that moment, I knew these weren't travelers. They were the answer to every dream I'd been having. They were the accounting. My wife's name was Edith. I need you to know that. History erased her identity, turned her into a cautionary tale, a pillar of salt without a face. But she had a name. She had hands that kneaded bread before dawn. She had a voice that sang our daughters to sleep with songs from from the world before Sodom. And that night, those hands shook as she set the table. "Who are they?" she whispered while drawing water from our cistern. "Travelers," I said. "Lot." She grabbed my wrist. her grip surprisingly strong. "Who are they really?" I looked at her. 23 years of marriage. I'd brought her to this place, promised her safety, prosperity, a future for our girls. And now I could see in her eyes what I'd been denying. She knew. On some level, she'd always known that the house we'd built was constructed on sand that was already shifting. "I don't know," I said, "but I think they're here to judge us." "Us?" Her voice cracked. "Or them?" I didn't answer, because I didn't know anymore where the line was, where I ended, and Sodom began. The strangers sat at my table with an ease that was almost insulting. While my family moved around them with the jagged energy of prey animals, they simply existed, serene, patient, like they had all the time in the world. When I could hear the world ending outside my door, my daughters served the meal. Unleavened bread, we hadn't had time to let it rise. Roasted lamb, olives and cheese. Wine from our own small vineyard outside the city walls. The one thing I'd kept from the old life. The younger daughter, Tamar, couldn't stop staring at the strangers. She was 16, still young enough to sense things the rest of us had trained ourselves not to see. "Why do you shine?" she asked suddenly. My wife gasped. You didn't ask questions like that in Sodom. Direct observation of the unusual was considered vulgar, but the stranger, the one who'd spoken my name, smiled at her. "Do we shine, child?" "Yes, like metal in sunlight, but softer. It doesn't hurt to look at you, but I can't look away." "That's because you still have eyes that work," he said gently. "Most people here have trained themselves into blindness." My older daughter, Rizpah, set down her cup too hard. She was 19, engaged to a merchant's son, already half sodomite in her manners, her assumptions. "That's rude," she said. "We're not blind. We're civilized. We've evolved past superstition." The stranger looked at her with something like pity. "Yes, I can see that." Outside, the noise was growing. Not a mob yet, not quite. Still the sound of people gathering. Curious, excited, that pre-entertainment buzz. Like the murmur before the games at the amphitheater. My sons-in-law, Rizpah's betrothed Malach, and Tamar's intended Zohar sat rigid. They were good boys, relatively speaking. They didn't participate in the gardens. They kept to business. They'd learned to navigate Sodom by staying small, unremarkable. Zohar cleared his throat. "Sir, Lot, perhaps the guests would be more comfortable at an inn?" "The inns will kill them," I said flatly. "That's dramatic. It's accurate." Malak leaned forward. He was the older one, more confident. His father owned 3 warehouses. "You're creating a situation. The law is clear about harboring untaxed travelers. If you just pay the gate fee in the morning, they'll be dead by morning. You don't know that." But I did. I could hear it in the voices outside, the particular tone, the same tone they used before a raid on the refugee camp outside the eastern wall, before a culling in the debtor's prison, the sound of people who decided something was going to happen, and the decision itself was the permission. The second stranger, the one who hadn't spoken yet, finally set down his bread. "Lot," he said quietly, "bar the door. It's all ready. Bar it again. Use the beam." I moved to the heavy oak beam we only used during storms. As I lifted it into the brackets, I felt the weight of it, the finality. Behind me, Edith made a sound, not quite a sob. The recognition of a threshold crossed. The strangers continued eating, not hurried, not afraid, just eating. Like men who knew exactly what was coming and had made their peace with it. "You're very calm," I said, returning to the table. "We've done this before," one of them replied. "Done what?" He met my eyes. "Watched a city die." And outside, the footsteps stopped. The voices stopped. The silence before the knock was somehow worse than any sound. It started with one fist, then another, then 10, then 100. The sound didn't resemble knocking anymore. It was percussion, rhythm, the heartbeat of something with too many hearts. Lot, a voice I recognized. Kelev. Of course. We know you have guests. Send them out. My daughters moved closer to their mother. The sons-in-law looked at each other, already calculating exit strategies, deals they could negotiate. I stood. The strangers remained seated, watching me with those impossible eyes. "What do I do?" I whispered. "What you've always done," one of them said. "Choose." I moved to the door but didn't open it, pressed my palm against the wood. I could feel the violence on the other side, transmitted through the grain like a pulse. "Kelev," I called out, "go home. These are my guests, under my protection, by the laws of hospitality." Laughter. Not just Kelev. Dozens of voices, maybe hundreds. The whole city pouring into my street. "Your guests." Kelev's voice was delighted, theatrical, playing to the crowd. "Lot, lot, lot. You know the law. All strangers belong to Sodom, to all of Sodom. We just want to welcome them. Show them our hospitality, our famous Sodomite hospitality." More laughter, cheers. Someone started a chant, "Send them out, send them out." Behind me, Tamar was crying. Edith had her arms around both daughters, but her eyes were on me, waiting. She'd been waiting for 20 years to see what kind of man I really was. "They're under my roof," I shouted, "by ancient law, by every code." "Ancient law?" Another voice. Magistrate Teresh. He'd been at the gate with me just hours ago, ruling on contract disputes like we were civilized people. "Lot, my friend, you're appealing to traditions that predate Sodom. We've evolved. We don't recognize those superstitions. Open the door, give us the strangers, and we'll forget you tried to harbor them illegally. And if I don't?" Silence. Then Teresh again, softer, more dangerous. "Then we come through the door anyway, and we take not just the strangers, but everything. Your house, your position, your daughter's marriage contracts, everything you've built here. Is two strangers' dignity worth all that?" There it was, the equation, the same calculation I'd been making for 20 years, just starker, crueler. I looked back at my family, at the strangers who somehow seemed bigger now, like they were taking up more space in the room without moving. And I made the worst decision of my life. "Please," I said through the door, "I have 2 daughters, virgins, still pure. Take them instead. Do whatever you want with them. Just leave my guests alone." The room went silent. Edith's face drained of color. Tamar made a sound like a wounded animal. Rizpah stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time. Like the father-shaped thing she'd known her whole life had just peeled away to reveal something else underneath. The sons-in-law moved unconsciously in front of the girls. Protection from me now, not from the mob. Outside, more laughter, but confused, uncertain. "Your daughters?" Kelev sounded genuinely puzzled. "Lot, we don't want your daughters. We want the strangers, the new flesh, the unblemished. What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you?" A good question. One of the strangers stood, moved to me, put a hand on my shoulder. His touch was cool, solid, real, in a way nothing in Sodom had felt real for years. "Lot," he said gently, "step back. I can negotiate." "No, you can't. This is beyond negotiation. This is the point where the math breaks, where there's no middle position. Step back." He moved past me to the door, opened it. I lunged forward. "Don't," but he was already through. The second stranger followed. They stood in my doorway, facing the mob that filled my street, my neighborhood, maybe the whole city. In the torchlight, I could see hundreds of faces, merchants, laborers, council members, priests, all of Sodom, come to welcome strangers the Sodom way. The strangers raised their hands. Light exploded from them. Not fire, Something cleaner, brighter, the kind of light that doesn't illuminate, it reveals. And the mob screamed. My eyes. I can't see. What did they do? Blindness rippled through the crowd like a wave. People stumbling, falling, clawing at their faces. The strangers stood calmly in the center of the chaos, then stepped back inside, closed the door, dropped the bar. Outside, the screaming continued, but it was moving away now. People fleeing, seeking healers, seeking answers. The stranger who'd blinded them turned to me. It's temporary, he said. By morning they'll see again, but by morning there won't be anything to see. What do you mean? He exchanged a look with his companion. A decision made. Sit down, Lot. All of you. It's time you understood what's happening. We sat. What else could we do? The stranger remained standing. Somehow he seemed taller now, like the room was adjusting its dimensions to accommodate him. My name is Raphael, he said. My companion is Michael. We are not travelers. We are messengers. And Lot. We are here on behalf of the judge. What judge? Malak asked. The high magistrate? The judge, Raphael repeated. The one before whom all cities stand, the one who made the valley before Sodom decided to own it. Edith's hand found mine under the table, squeezed. She understood before the rest of us. Or maybe she'd always understood and was just relieved someone was finally saying it aloud. You're angels, Tamar whispered. We prefer messengers. Angels is a translation issue. But yes, Zohar laughed, nervous, high-pitched. This is insane. Angels aren't real. This is what is this? Some kind of street theater? A protest against Sodom is ending, Michael spoke for the second time. His voice was different from Raphael's. Colder, more final. Tonight, before dawn, the city and everything in it will be consumed. The room tilted. Or maybe I tilted. It's hard to remember. You can't, I heard myself say. You can't destroy a whole city. There are good people here. Somewhere. Children who haven't chosen yet. People who... Where? Raphael asked simply. I could find them. If you give me time. If we go door to door. Lot. He crouched down, eye level with me. We've been walking your streets for 3 days. Invisible. Watching. Do you know how many acts of kindness we witnessed? How many moments of mercy? How many people who saw injustice and intervened? I didn't want to ask. But how many? One. You. At the gate today. And even you. Do you want to know what you did 10 minutes before you invited us home? I closed my eyes. You sold a child into slavery to settle a contract dispute. You called it justice. The law required. Yes, the law. Sodom's law. The law that makes compassion criminal and cruelty civic duty. The law you've been enforcing for 2 decades while telling yourself you're a good man, trapped in a bad system. Edith was crying now, quiet, hopeless. But there must be some equation, I pressed. Some number. Abraham bargained with God over this. If there are 50 righteous people, there aren't. 45? There aren't. 40? 30? 20? 10? My voice was climbing, desperate. Surely 10 people, in a city of thousands, 10 people who haven't. Lot. Raphael's voice was gentle, terrible. We already did the count, because Abraham asked us to, because you're his family, not because you've earned it. The truth of that sat in my stomach like stone. How long? Edith asked, her first words since the strangers revealed themselves. Until dawn, Michael said. When the sun rises, fire falls. Everything from the northern ridge to the southern salt flats. Both cities, every settlement. The valley will become a grave. But we can leave, Rizpah said suddenly. Right? We can just leave? Go to the hills? Start over? Yes, Raphael straightened. You can. That's why we're here. To give you the chance your city won't give itself. But you need to leave now. Tonight. And you can't come back. Not ever. Not even to look. Our things, Edith said reflexively. The dowries. The deeds. We need to... You need to leave with what you can carry and count yourselves lucky. Lucky? She almost screamed it. Lucky? Do you know what we've built here? 20 years. This house. The girls' futures. Our position. You're asking us to throw it all away on what? A threat? A vision? How do we even know you're really? Michael moved his hand. The water in our cups boiled. Instantly. Steam rising. The wood of the table where he'd touched it charred black, smoking. We stopped arguing about proof. Gather your families, Raphael said. Your sons-in-law's fathers, brothers, anyone you want to save. You have until the hour before dawn. Then we leave, with or without you. And if we don't, Malak whispered, if we choose to stay? The angels looked at him with something too vast to be called pity. Then you burn with the city you chose. Have you ever tried to convince someone to abandon everything they know based on nothing but your word? It's like trying to describe color to someone born blind, or explain water to a fish. The sons-in-law left first. We sent them to gather their families. Malak to his father's compound near the western wall. Zohar to his clan in the merchant quarter. They never came back. I found out later, much later, when the ash had settled and I'd stopped counting the dead, what happened. Malak made it home. Told his father everything. The angels, the threat, the escape plan. His father laughed, thought it was a prank. Some kind of elaborate joke from the younger generation, mocking the old stories. Even when Malak insisted, swore, begged, his father just poured more wine and patted his shoulder. Son, Sodom has stood for 300 years. We survived the Eastern Rebellion, the trade wars, the earthquake of my grandfather's time. You think two strangers are going to end us with magic tricks? Go to bed. Sleep it off. Zohar got a different response. His mother was religious, or had been, before Sodom taught her to hide it. She looked at him with horror. You brought angels to Lot's house? You saw actual angels and you're here? Go, run, get to the hills. But his brothers mocked him, called him superstitious, backwards. This is exactly the kind of fundamentalist thinking that keeps society from progressing, one said. He'd just come from the council chambers where they'd voted to expand the gardens. We don't run from fairy tales. His mother packed a bag anyway, was heading for the door when his father stopped her. You leave alone. No money, no name, no family. She put the bag down. That's how fast it happens. How quickly survival math calculates itself. Inside our house, we waited and waited. The angels sat in silence, not impatient, not concerned, just present, like they'd seen this play out 1,000 times and knew all the lines. They're coming, I kept saying. They're just gathering supplies, convincing people. It takes time to... They're not coming, Michael said. Finally. 19 years of rage suddenly focused. You brought us here. You chose this place, raised us here, taught us this was the world. And now, some strangers show up and you want us to believe it's all ending? That everything we are is wrong? That we have to run like criminals? Not criminals. Survivors. What's the difference? She was crying now. Father, I'm engaged. I have a wedding in 3 months. 3 months. The dress is being sewn. The musicians are hired. The venue is going to be ash. She stared at me. Then at the angels. Then at her mother, looking for someone to tell her this wasn't real. Edith looked away. Tamar was different. The younger one. She'd always been different. Quieter, more watchful. While Rizpah fought, Tamar simply started filling a bag. Simple things. A blanket, a water skin, bread. What are you doing? Edith asked. Preparing. For what? To leave. She looked at her mother. We are leaving, aren't we? That's what you want. Deep down. You want permission to leave. Edith's face crumpled. Because it was true. I could see it. She'd wanted to leave for years, maybe from the beginning, but I'd convinced her to stay, with my logic, my promises, my assurance that we could have both prosperity and righteousness, that we could live in Babylon and not become Babylonian. I wanted a good life for you, Edith whispered. Both of you, that's all. A good life. This isn't a good life, Mother. Tamar's voice was matter-of-fact, not angry, just done. This is a beautiful prison, and the angels are offering us the key. The hour before dawn arrived like a judge's sentence. The sons-in-law hadn't returned. The angels stood. It's time, Raphael said. Wait. I moved to the door. Please, just a few more minutes. They might still... Michael's hand on my shoulder. Firm. Final. Lot. They made their choice. You made yours 20 years ago when you chose this valley. Tonight, you get to unmake it, but only if you move. Now. I looked at my daughters. Rizpah still clutching her jewelry box. Tamar with her simple bag. At Edith, her face ancient in the lamplight. The girls, I said. At least the girls come. Do they? Raphael asked. Or are you dragging them into a wilderness they don't want because you can't bear to leave alone? They're my children. They're adults, with choices. He turned to them. Rizpah, Tamar, you've heard everything. You've seen what we are. You know what's coming. Do you choose to leave? Tamar nodded immediately. Rizpah looked at her jewelry box. At the door, at the life she'd been promised. If I go, she said slowly, can I come back? Later? After? Just to get some things? No, Michael said. Then, I don't understand the point. We'll have nothing, be nothing, refugees, beggars. We'll be the people Sodom throws away. You'll be alive. She laughed, bitter. You call that a choice? It's the only choice that matters. She looked at me, and I saw it happen. The calculation, the same one I'd taught her by example every day of her life in this place. The weighing of costs, the selection of the comfortable lie over the hard truth. I'll take my chances, she said. Then she walked out the door, into the darkness, toward Malak's family compound, toward her wedding, toward Ash. Edith screamed, tried to run after her. I held her back. Or maybe the angels did. It's blurred now. What I remember clearly is Raphael's face. Not surprised, not disappointed. Just sad. Some people, he said, will choose the burning building if it's the only home they've ever known. We should have left then. Immediately. Run. We didn't. I stood in my doorway, looking at the street where my daughter had disappeared, and I couldn't move. You'd think the hard part would be the decision, choosing to leave, but the decision was made. The angels were here. The truth was undeniable. The hard part was the first step. Lot, Raphael's voice. Patient, but with an edge now. We need to go. I know. Then why are you still here? I looked at my house, really looked at it. 20 years of accumulation. The courtyard I'd paved myself, stone by stone. The room where Rizpah took her first steps. The garden where Edith grew herbs from seeds she'd brought from the last living connection to the world before Sodom. The chair where I sat every evening, convincing myself I was still a righteous man. If we leave, I heard myself say, it means it was all a waste. Every year, every compromise, every time I told myself I was doing the right thing by staying, all of it, meaningless. No, Michael said. Not meaningless, instructive. You learned what happens when a good man loves comfort more than truth. That's not a small lesson. I have scrolls, Edith said suddenly. Family records, my grandmother's. If we leave them, no one will know we existed. Our lineage, your lineage continues in Tamar, Raphael cut in. In you, in the living, paper burns, memory survives. Choose. But choosing was the thing we'd forgotten how to do. In Sodom, you didn't choose. You optimized, you calculated, you found the position that cost the least and returned the most. You stood in the middle and called it wisdom. Actual choice, real, binary, no take-back choice. We'd trained ourselves out of it. How long do we have? I asked. The angels looked east. The sky was changing. Still dark, but with that particular quality that comes before false dawn. Minutes, Michael said. Not many. And if we're still here when the sun rises, then you burn with the city. But you're angels. Can't you just carry us, protect us, make us move? I was bargaining. Again, always bargaining. Raphael crouched down. Eye level. The way you talk to a child. Lot. Listen to me. We can destroy a city. We can blind a mob. We can show you the truth so clearly you can't deny it. But we cannot make you walk. That's the one thing you have to do yourself. Do you understand? Salvation requires participation. You have to take the step. My legs felt like stone, like I'd already become the thing my wife was about to become. I can't, I whispered. You can. You don't understand. This place, it's poison. I know it's poison. I've known for years, but I've been here so long I've adapted to it. My lungs work on this air. If I leave, what if I can't breathe clean air anymore? What if I'm too changed, too ruined? What if the wilderness kills me faster than staying would? This is what 20 years of moral compromise does. It convinces you that you're too corrupted for redemption, that you've gone too far to turn back, that the poison you've adapted to is safer than the cure you've never tried. It paralyzes you. Michael and Raphael looked at each other. Another silent conversation. Then they moved. Each one grabbed an arm. Mine and Edith's. Tamar, they simply gestured to. She followed willingly. And they dragged us. Literally dragged us. Out of the house, into the street, through the silent city. We struggled. We begged. We tried to pull back. My scrolls, Edith wailed. My position, I shouted. I'm a man of standing. I can't just... They didn't respond. Just pulled. Implacable. Their grip gentle but absolutely firm, like being moved by tide, by gravity, by something too fundamental to resist. We passed houses where I knew people, families, Jathan, the wine merchant who'd always treated me fairly, Kelev, yes, even Kelev had children, young ones. Who would warn them? Stop. I tried to plant my feet. We have to tell people, warn them. We can't just... We did warn them, Raphael said, still pulling. For 3 days, in the marketplace, at the gates, in the gardens, we told anyone who would listen. Do you know how many listened? I didn't answer. None, Lot. Not one. We reached the eastern gate, passed through. The road beyond led up, into the hills, away from the valley, away from the green, away from everything. Finally, just outside the city walls, they released us. Run, Michael commanded. Don't look back, don't stop, make for the hills. There's a town, Zoar, small enough it might be spared. Get past it. Get to the high country. And don't look back. Why? Tamar asked. Why can't we look back? The angels were already turning away, back toward the city, their work done. But Raphael paused, looked at us one last time. Because, he said, if you look back, you'll want to return. And if you want to return, you'll stop running. And if you stop running, he didn't finish, didn't need to. The eastern sky was lighter now, false dawn becoming real dawn. Go, Michael said. Now. And we ran. 3 people, 1 family, out of Sodom. Behind us, I heard the angels' voices rising, not in language, in something older, a frequency that made my bones ache. They were calling down the fire, and ahead of us, the long road up, into the unknown, into survival. If we could keep running, if we could resist the pull of everything we were leaving behind, if... Running uphill in darkness is a special kind of hell. Your lungs burn, your legs scream, Every instinct tells you to stop, look back, orient yourself. But you can't, because the angels said don't look back, and when angels give you one simple instruction, you follow it. We ran. Edith, Tamar, me, 3 people who hadn't run anywhere in 20 years. We'd had servants, carriages, comfortable lives that didn't require cardiovascular exertion. Now we stumbled over rocks we couldn't see, gasping air that tasted wrong, too clean, too thin, missing the sulfur-sweet thickness of the valley, and every cell in our bodies screamed to turn around and go home. Because that's the thing they don't tell you about escape. Your body doesn't know the difference between fleeing danger and abandoning safety. To your muscles, your lungs, your instincts honed in that place, Sodom was safety. The known, the mapped, the predictable. This darkness, this upward climb, this uncertainty, this was the danger. I can't, Edith gasped. She'd stopped, bent over, hands on knees. I can't breathe. I need to rest. We can't stop. I grabbed her arm, pulled. She was heavier than I expected, or I was weaker. 20 years of soft living. Just a moment. Please. Just let me. Mother. Tamar ahead of us turned back. Her young legs hadn't failed yet. Keep moving. We're not far enough. Far enough from what? We're outside the walls. We're safe. We don't know that. The angels said the city. They said Sodom would burn. We're not in Sodom anymore. She was right. Technically, we'd left the city limits. We were on the road, free, but the angels had said run. Don't stop. Keep going. There's a difference between leaving and escaping. One is geographic, the other is existential. I looked back down the road, could still see the city, the walls illuminated by torches, the towers, the garden's lights still burning. From here, it looked almost beautiful, peaceful, a jewel in the valley. Safe. My feet slowed, without meaning to. Lot. Tamar's voice, sharp. What are you doing? Just getting my bearings, making sure we're on the right path. The path is up, away. That's all the bearing you need. But I kept looking, and in that looking, I felt it. The pull, not physical, deeper, the gravity of investment, of sunken cost, of the man I'd been in that place, the status I'd held, the illusion of control. I'd been someone there. Out here, in the darkness, on a refugee road, I was nothing. We should have brought more, Edith said, still staring back. I didn't even pack properly. I just grabbed. I don't even know what I grabbed. My wedding bracelet. It's still in the house, on the table. I took it off to knead the bread, and I just left it. It's a bracelet, Tamar said. It was my mother's bracelet. The only thing I have of her. Had. The only thing. You have her blood. Her name. Her story. Stories don't prove lineage. Objects do. How will anyone know who we are? Who we were? Does it matter? And there it was. The question that separated those who could escape from those who couldn't. Does who you were matter more than who you might become? Edith looked at her daughter like she'd spoken a foreign language. Of course it matters. We're not peasants. We're not random refugees. We're from a line. My father was your grandfather owned. We have standing in a city that's about to die. You don't know that. Angels or not, maybe they're wrong. Maybe it's a test. Maybe. The eastern sky cracked open. Not metaphorically, literally. A sound like the world splitting, like reality tearing. We turned, all 3 of us. We couldn't help it and saw it. Light, but not sunrise. This was wrong, too white, too bright, coming from the wrong direction, from above. And with it, heat, a wave of it. Even at this distance, even uphill, the air temperature jumped 20 degrees in a heartbeat. Run! I screamed. We ran. No more discussion, no more looking back. Pure animal panic, the kind that shuts down thought and just moves. Behind us, the sound grew. Not an explosion, continuous, a roar, like a waterfall, but made of fire instead of water. I could hear it consuming, devouring, the timber and stone sound of a city unmade. Screams. Even at this distance, even over the roar, I could hear them, thousands of voices, realizing, too late. Edith was crying while she ran. Rizpah, our baby, our girl, she's down there. We can't. She's our daughter. And she chose, Edith. We can't unmake her choice. But the mother in her, the part that had carried that child, birthed her, raised her, that part couldn't accept it. Didn't want to accept it. She slowed again, turned. Edith, no. I just need to see. Just need to know if maybe she got out. If maybe she's running behind us. If... Mother, don't look, Tamar shrieked. But it was too late. Edith turned, fully turned, stopped running, stood on that dark road and looked back at the valley, at the city, at everything we were fleeing. And the light from the burning city hit her face. I've had 30 years to think about what I saw, to process it, to find words. There are no words. One moment, Edith was standing there, my wife, flesh, blood, breath, real. The next, change. Not instant, not slow, something between, a transformation that took maybe 3 seconds, but felt like watching someone age 100 years in reverse and forward simultaneously. Her skin paled, whitened, not like death, like crystallization, like watching water become ice. But the water was a person. She opened her mouth. To scream, to speak, I don't know. No sound came out, just a breath, her last breath, and even that turned white, frost in summer. Her eyes, God, her eyes, stayed alive the longest, looking at me, at Tamar, aware, knowing, terrified. Then they clouded, opaque, like winter windows, and she was gone, not dead. Dead would have been mercy. Transformed, transmuted, every cell of her converted to salt, sodium chloride, the stuff of preservation and flavor and ancient covenants and tears. She stood there, a statue, perfect in every detail. I could see the lines around her eyes, the shape of her mouth mid-gasp, the way her robe fell, all of it preserved, all of it salt. Tamar screamed. The sound ripped out of her like something physical being torn from flesh. I couldn't scream, couldn't move, couldn't process what I was seeing. I reached out, touched her. Edith, the salt thing that had been Edith. Warm, still warm, but hard, crystalline. My fingers came away white with residue. I tasted it without thinking, brought my fingers to my mouth. Salt, and something else. Something that tasted like grief, like 20 years of compromised choices, like the price of looking back when you're supposed to run forward. Why? Tamar was sobbing. Why did she look? Why couldn't she just... Because she loved wrong, I said. Heard myself say it. She loved the wrong things, or loved the right things in the wrong order. She loved US, she loved Rizpah. That's not wrong. She loved her memory of Rizpah. The child, not the woman who chose to stay. She loved her idea of us, the family we were supposed to be, not the family we actually were. I was still touching the statue, this thing that used to hold my wife. She loved backwards, I continued. Loved what was, instead of what could be. And when the angel said, "Don't look back," it wasn't arbitrary, it was diagnostic. The ones who could move forward would survive. The ones still chained to what was behind them. I gestured. This was the result. The light from the valley was brighter now, overwhelming, the heat intense. We were running out of time. We have to leave her, I said. No. Tamar grabbed the statue's arm. We can't just... We have to bring her. We can't leave her alone. We can't... She's already alone. This isn't her anymore. It's a monument, a marker, a warning. She's my mother. Your mother left when she turned around. This is what's left. Cruel, true, both. Tamar looked at me with hatred, pure, and I deserved it, had earned it. Through 20 years of choices that led to this road, this moment, this family shattered into salt and ash and survival. Come on, I said. We have to keep moving. The angels said, I don't care what the angels said. I don't care about prophecy or judgment or any of it. I care about her. She was clinging to the statue now, arms around it, like she could pour warmth back in, life back in, love back in. And I understood. God, I understood. Because I wanted to do the same thing, wanted to stay here, build a shrine, tend this salt wife until I turned to salt myself. Wanted to look back, but the sky was fully white now, the roar deafening, and in the distance I could see it, the fire rain, not falling, erupting, from the ground, from the sky, from everywhere at once. Brimstone, sulfur. God's match struck against the earth's box. I grabbed Tamar, pulled her away. She fought, kicked, screamed. She would want you to live, I shouted over the roar. Whatever else she got wrong, she would want this, for you to survive, to remember, to carry forward. I don't want to carry forward. I want to go back. I want last week. I want before the angels. I want normal. I want... Normal is dead. I was screaming now, shaking her. Normal burned. Normal was built on sand that's melting into glass. We don't get to choose what we want, only what we do with what we get. The heat was unbearable, the light blinding, the statue. Edith was starting to glow, reflecting, refracting. The fire's light caught in 1,000 salt crystals, turning her into something almost holy. Almost. I picked Tamar up, bodily. She was 19 and I was 52, and I shouldn't have been able to carry her, but adrenaline does things, makes the impossible briefly possible. I ran, carried her, away from her mother, away from the valley, up, always up. Behind us, Edith stood eternal, facing the city, watching, forever, watching the destruction of everything she couldn't let go. A pillar of salt, a warning, a prayer frozen mid-utterance. We made it to a cave, barely, just as the worst of it hit. From there, from the mouth of that shallow hollow in the hillside, we watched the world end. The valley, the whole valley was burning, but not with normal fire. This was something else, something fundamental, like creation reversed, like God saying, "Let there be light," and meaning it as threat instead of gift. The cities went first. Sodom, Gomorrah. The flames didn't spread gradually. They erupted, simultaneously, every building igniting at once. I watched towers, structures that had stood for centuries, go from solid to ash in seconds. The stone itself burned, melted, flowed like water. The people, I could see them, even from this distance. Tiny figures, running, falling, trying to escape what couldn't be escaped. Some made it to the walls, thought walls would protect them. The walls melted, collapsed, buried them. Some ran toward the river, thought water would save them. The river boiled, evaporated, left them standing in mud that ignited beneath their feet. Some tried to hide, in cellars, in cisterns, in the elaborate underground complexes the wealthy had built for wine storage. The fire found them anyway. Oxygen burned. Carbon dioxide filled the spaces. They suffocated before they burned. But most just stood there, frozen, like Edith, paralyzed by the impossibility of it. By normalcy, bias so strong that even when the world was ending, they couldn't accept it wasn't a temporary disruption, a manageable crisis, something the authorities would handle. They died waiting for someone to fix it. The fire burned for hours. When the sun rose, the real sun, Not the false light of judgment, it rose on a landscape transformed. The valley was gone, the green, the lushness, the gardens, all of it gone. In its place, glass, salt, ash. The heat had been so intense it had fused the sand into vast sheets of black glass. The minerals from the sea had crystallized over everything in a thick white crust. The ash, all that remained of two cities, all those people, all that civilization, formed drifts like grey snow. And the silence. The absence of sound was somehow worse than the roar had been. No birds, no insects, no wind. The valley had become a dead place, a scar on the earth. A wound that would never heal, because it wasn't meant to heal. It was meant to remain, to testify. Tamar sat at the back of the cave, hadn't spoken in hours, just stared, not crying anymore. Past crying. I sat at the mouth, watching, bearing witness, because someone had to. Someone had to remember what happened when a civilization decided that cruelty was just culture, that evil was just evolution. That silence was just sophistication. I thought about Rizpah, my daughter, 19 years old, probably dead before she even understood what was happening. Maybe in Malak's family compound when the fire came. Maybe curled up with her wedding dress, dreaming of a future that evaporated with her. I thought about my sons-in-law, good boys, weak boys, who'd heard truth and chosen comfort. I thought about all the people I'd known, Jathan, the wine merchant, Magistrate Teresh, even Kelev, all of them gone, removed, deleted. And I felt nothing. That's the terrible secret. After a certain scale of loss, you don't feel grief, you feel numb, empty. The capacity for sorrow has limits. Your heart simply stops processing, goes into shutdown, protective mode. I'd lost my wife, my daughter, my home, my position, my entire constructed identity, and I felt nothing, just hollow. Father, Tamar's voice, small, broken, the first word in hours. What do we do now? I didn't answer, because I didn't know. The angels had said survive, get to the hills, but they hadn't said what comes after, how you live with being the only ones who left, how you carry the knowledge that you could have done it sooner, should have done it sooner, how you explain to your daughter that her mother died because she loved wrong, when you're the one who taught her what to love. Below us, something moved in the destruction. I tensed, thought maybe impossibly someone else had survived, someone running late, someone who'd made it through, but it was just the wind, finally returning, blowing ash in patterns across the glass, creating temporary shapes, suggestions of the buildings that had stood there, ghosts made of particulate. I watched the ash shapes form and dissolve, and I understood. This was all that was left. Temporary patterns, suggestions, ghosts. Sodom was gone. But the idea of Sodom, the principle of it, the spiritual architecture that remained, that would always remain, waiting for the next valley, the next civilization, the next group of people who'd convinced themselves that they'd evolved past consequences. I stood up, looked at Tamar. We survive, I said. That's what we do now. We survive, we remember, and we make sure this, I gestured to the valley, doesn't happen again. How? She asked. How do we stop it? We couldn't even stop ourselves. I don't know. But we bear witness. We tell the story. We become the warning we didn't heed. Who's going to listen? Good question. The best question. Who listens to warnings about cities they're still living in? You think I'm telling you an ancient story, a biblical parable, something safely distant, wrapped in the amber of scripture and time. I'm not. I'm describing your Tuesday. Look at your phone, right now, while you're listening to this. Scroll through your feed. What do you see? Videos of violence with comment sections full of jokes, cruelty monetized and algorithmed, outrage packaged as entertainment. People's worst moments captured, shared, liked, saved for later consumption. Platforms built on rage, because rage is engaging, and engagement is profitable, and profit is the only metric that matters. You see it, don't you? You see the pattern. The difference between Sodom and your timeline isn't technology, it's honesty. Sodom at least admitted what it was. We passed laws making cruelty legal. We built arenas for suffering. We were explicit. You've outsourced it, algorithmed it, made it so clean and distant that you can participate in someone's destruction while drinking coffee and telling yourself you're just staying informed. You've got Sodom in your pocket, in a 5-inch screen, updated continuously. Think about it. In Sodom, we criminalized helping the poor. You don't criminalize it, you just scroll past 73 ads and appeals a day. So many that compassion fatigue is an accepted diagnosis. So many that not helping isn't cruelty, it's just normal. It's just realistic. It's just the world works. You've normalized the numbness we had to work at. In Sodom, we had the gardens of delight where you could watch suffering as entertainment. You've got, what? Compilation videos, fail videos, instant karma videos where you watch someone get hurt and the algorithm serves it to you because you watched it before, which means you want to watch it again. You've automated what we had to curate. In Sodom, we had laws that benefited the wealthy and crushed the poor, and we enforced them at the gate with civic pride. You've got tax codes so complex that the wealthy pay specialists to find loopholes while the poor pay the full rate, and you call it just the way things are. Regrettable but inevitable. The price of civilization. You've systematized what we had to justify. And the worst part? The absolutely damning part? You know, in Sodom, most people genuinely believed the system was right. We'd been propagandized, culturally indoctrinated. It took angels appearing to make us question. But you have the information, you have the data. You know that your clothes are made by children in conditions that break your own laws. You know that your cheap goods require someone somewhere to suffer. You know that your convenience is built on a foundation of exploitation somewhere down the supply chain. You know, and you've developed a vocabulary to live with knowing. Ethical consumption under capitalism is impossible, true, and also a perfect excuse to stop trying. I'm just one person, true, and also what everyone says, which is why nothing changes. The system is too big, true, and also what people said in Sodom when I asked why no one protested. You've got enlightened paralysis, sophisticated complicity. You can explain exactly why the world is broken while doing nothing to fix it, and you call that being realistic. We called it being sodomite. I sat at the gate for 20 years, adjudicating evil, telling myself I was moderating it, containing it, that my presence was better than my absence. How many of you are sitting at your own gates right now, working for companies you know are causing harm, telling yourself you're the ethical one on the inside, the voice of reason, the moderating influence, staying at the job that violates your values because the salary is good and the stock options are vesting and you've got kids to think about and student loans and retirement, and anyway, if you left someone worse, would take your place. So really, you're doing a service by staying. I know that voice. I am that voice. And I'm here 3,000 years later to tell you, it's a lie. It was a lie in Sodom, and it's a lie now. Your daughter isn't going to thank you for the stock options if she inherits a world where those options were built on exploitation. Your son isn't going to celebrate your pragmatism if the pragmatism was just another word for cowardice. I know, I tried. I gave Rizpah everything except the example of leaving when staying became untenable, and she burned. Now here's the question that should terrify you. Where's your line? What would it take for you to leave your Sodom? If they started putting people in camps but it's legal and you're not directly involved and you've got a mortgage, do you stay? If they started criminalizing dissent but you're not political anyway and it doesn't affect you directly and your job is secure, do you stay? If they started removing people, but they're not people you know, and the news says they're criminals, and anyway, what could you do? Do you stay? You think you'd be different. You think you'd be the one who leaves, who protests, who risks everything for principle. But here's what I learned. Evil doesn't announce itself. It doesn't arrive wearing the uniform and carrying the sign. It arrives as progress, as civilization, as sophistication, as just the way things are. And good people, people like you, people like me, we adapt, we acclimate. We learn to breathe poisoned air and call it just how cities smell. We become sodomite, and by the time the angels arrive, we can't move. Our feet are already salt. We're monuments before we've even turned around. I'm an old man now, 97, living in a cave. The angels promised blessing, they delivered survival, which I've learned is sometimes the same thing and sometimes the cruelest thing. Tamar had children, grandchildren. The line continued. But every day I wake up and the first thing I think about is the pillar of salt that used to be my wife, still standing there, probably. I've never gone back to check. The angel said, don't look back, and I've obeyed at least that much. The pillar stands as a monument, but not to her, to the thing she couldn't release. And that's the lesson, if you're listening. If you can hear me across the centuries and the stories and the distance, the lesson isn't don't look back as a random prohibition. It's not superstition, it's physics, spiritual physics. You can't move forward while you're facing backward. You can't escape what you won't release. You can't be saved if you're still in love with what's killing you. Edith looked back because she was still attached. To Rizpah, yes, but more than that, to the idea of Rizpah, to the life we were supposed to have, to the future we'd planned, to the investment we'd made. 20 years we'd spent building that life, and the cost of abandoning it felt higher than the cost of staying, until staying cost everything. This is the trap of sunk cost, of investment, of the deep human inability to cut losses. We pour ourselves into places, relationships, careers, identities. We invest so much that leaving feels like dying, like erasing ourselves, like admitting we were wrong, which feels worse than being destroyed. So we stay, and stay, and stay, until staying is what destroys us. I watch it happen still, even from this cave, even in this age, so distant from my own. I see people in relationships that are obviously toxic, staying because they've already put in 5 years, and leaving would mean those years were wasted. Because we're not built to hear warnings about things we want. We're built to hear confirmations, justifications, rationalizations. We're built to stand at the gate and adjudicate evil and call it pragmatism. Here's what I wish I'd understood at 30 when I chose the valley. Righteousness isn't a location, it's a direction. You don't arrive at goodness. You don't achieve it and then maintain it through clever positioning. You move toward it, constantly, daily. Every choice a step either toward or away. And if you realize you've been walking the wrong direction, you turn around immediately. You don't worry about the distance you've already walked. You don't mourn the time invested in the wrong path. You just turn and walk. Because every step in the right direction is worth infinite steps in the wrong one. Edith couldn't turn, couldn't walk, because she was still computing, still calculating, still weighing whether the cost of leaving was worth it. She was still trying to find the middle position when there was no middle available. And that's the final lesson, the one carved in salt and ash, and the memory of cities that thought they were eternal. Some choices are binary. Some moments are threshold moments. Some decisions are now or never. And when the angels come literally or metaphorically, when the moment arrives where you have to choose between who you've been and who you could become, between the city you know and the wilderness you don't, between the comfort of the familiar poison and the terror of unknown health, you choose, immediately, fully, without looking back. Not because looking back is magically cursed, but because looking back means you're still torn, still divided, still trying to have both. And you can't. You can't serve two masters, can't love both God and mammon, can't walk both paths. You have to choose. And then, this is the part that takes courage. You have to keep choosing. Every day, every moment, when your feet want to turn around, when your heart wants to go back, when the investment you've lost screams louder than the life you could gain. You keep walking forward, into the wilderness, into the uncertainty, into the terrifying freedom of not knowing who you are outside the city that defined you. You walk, and eventually, maybe not quickly, maybe not soon, but eventually you realize something. The wilderness isn't empty. It's full. Full of the you that got buried under the Sodom you. Full of the possibilities you couldn't see from the gate. Full of the life you couldn't access while you were busy maintaining the life you'd built. I found that, eventually, in this cave, with Tamar, with the grandchildren, with the long, slow work of rebuilding a self not defined by position or property or the approval of a city that's now ash. But I paid a price, the highest price. I paid it in salt. And now I'm telling you, across the centuries, across the medium, across the distance between ancient story and modern ears, I'm telling you, don't wait for the angels. Don't wait until the fire is falling to decide to leave. Don't wait until you're being dragged to move your feet. Look at your life, your actual life, not the one you're planning, not the one you're imagining, the one you're living, and ask, is this Sodom? Is this the place where cruelty is normal? Where evil is infrastructure? Where my silence is complicity? Where my participation is permission? Ask. And if the answer is yes, if even part of the answer is yes, if there's any whisper of recognition, walk. Now, before your feet become salt, before the investment becomes identity, before the city you're building becomes the prison you can't leave, walk. The angels gave us one instruction: don't look back. I'm giving you one more. Don't wait to look forward. The wilderness is calling. Your future is waiting. The person you could become is standing at the edge of the city you've been asking if you're coming. What do you say? What do you choose? Where are your feet pointing? Because in the end, after all the theology and history and story, it comes down to this: direction. Are you walking toward who you want to become, or away from it? Are you moving into freedom, or staying in chains you've learned to call comfort? Are you choosing life, or choosing the familiar death? The choice is always yours, but it won't be yours forever. Eventually, the fire comes. Eventually, the moment passes. Eventually, you become a monument to the choice you didn't make. Don't be salt. Be someone who walked. That's all. That's everything. Walk.